I found a hidden room in my house. It shouldn't exist. I bought an old house last year, one of those creaky, too cheap to make sense deals that you just know has a history. But I was desperate, and the place had a strange charm to it. The floors groaned, the walls whispered in the wind, and sometimes at night, I swore I could hear faint shuffling somewhere beyond the walls. But old houses make weird noises, right? I convinced myself it was nothing, until I found the room. I was rearranging furniture in the guest bedroom when I knocked a bookshelf too hard against the wall. The impact made a hollow sound, a very hollow sound. Confused, I knocked again. The noise was different from the rest of the wall. Something was behind it. I should have stopped there, called a contractor, let someone else handle it. But curiosity has always been my worst trait. It took a crowbar and a lot of effort. But eventually, the section of the wall gave way, revealing a doorway. There was no door, just a dark, yawning space that seemed to breathe cold air. My stomach twisted as I peered inside. It was a room, a hidden room that should not have been there. Inside, the walls were covered in old, decayed wallpaper that had once been white but was now sickly yellow. The floor was coated in dust, yet something about it felt off, like it had been recently disturbed. But the worst part, the entire back wall was lined with mirrors. Tall, thin mirrors, side by side, reflecting the empty room back at me. Except, I wasn't in the reflection. I stared at the mirrors, my breath caught in my throat. The room was there, perfectly replicated, but I wasn't. The doorway behind me was reflected, the dust-covered floor, the dim glow of the hallway light stretching into the forbidden space. But I was missing. My legs locked in place as my mind struggled to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe the mirrors were dirty. Maybe the angle was weird. Maybe. Then something moved. Not in my reality. In the reflection. I saw it, a figure stepping into the room. It moved cautiously, its posture eerily familiar, as if it was the one discovering the room for the first time. And then it stopped, right where I was standing. My breath hitched, and the air in the room seemed to thin. I wanted to run, but my body refused to obey. The figure in the mirror slowly lifted its head. I couldn't make out a face, just a horrible absence where one should be. Then, as if noticing my presence, it tilted its head, and then it smiled. A grotesque, jagged grin that stretched impossibly wide. I stumbled backward, crashing into the wall behind me. The sound must have startled the thing, because its head snapped toward me, though I wasn't in the reflection. But somehow, it knew I was there, and then it started moving toward the glass. Not just in the reflection. Something moved behind the mirrors. I heard the faintest scrape of something pressing against the other side. A soft, deliberate sound, like fingers dragging against the glass, testing for weakness. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of that room. I don't remember boarding up the entrance, but I must have, because when I came back to my senses, I was standing in the hallway, hammer in hand, breath coming in ragged gasps. I tried to tell myself it was a hallucination, that stress and exhaustion were playing tricks on me. But last night, as I lay in bed, I heard it again. The shuffling, the soft, patient scrape of something dragging its fingers along the wall, testing, waiting. And when I worked up the courage to glance at the mirror across my bedroom just for a second, I saw something impossible. The reflection of my bedroom door. It was open, but in reality, it was still shut. Nostalgia is one hell of a thing. It's supposed to bring warmth, a fond remembrance of the past. But for me, it brings only emptiness. What once filled me with joy now feels like a ghost of something lost. I sit in front of my PC, fingers idly tapping on the desk, staring at my game library. Hundreds of titles, old and new, but none of them bring me the same joy they once did. I used to lose myself in these worlds. Late nights turned into early mornings. My friends and I laughing through our headsets, planning our next adventure in World of Warcraft, screaming at each other in Counter-Strike, sharing dirty jokes, and ripping on each other. Now, I open a game, play for a few minutes, and quit. The excitement, the immersion, it's gone. I try new games, hoping for that rush, that childlike anticipation, but it's never the same. The magic is missing, replaced by a quiet longing I can't shake. Movies don't help either. I scroll through endless lists of recommendations, watching trailers, hoping something will catch my interest. I revisit old favorites, the ones that used to make me feel alive, but instead of comfort, they make me long for a time that no longer exists. They remind me of who I was, the people I was with, the laughter, the simplicity of it all, the innocence. Now, my best friends, those I considered my brothers, are drifting away. We used to be inseparable, thick as thieves since childhood. Now, I see them maybe once a month, if that. The group chats are graveyards of old jokes and the occasional, "We should hang out more," but we never do. They all moved on. Most of them already have children or full-time jobs, and me. I'm sitting in my room, surrounded by old memorabilia, clinging to a time that will never return. I go back to the places we once haunted, the park where we sat, smoked weed, and talked about everything and nothing. The late-night gas station runs for snacks before a long gaming session. The streets we wandered aimlessly, dreaming about our future, believing things would always stay the same. But they didn't. The memories hit me like sudden flashes of lightning. Short, strong, and gone in an instant, leaving only a deep sadness behind. Now I lie on my bed, in the dark, on my phone, waiting till I fall asleep. It's an endless cycle. Scroll, like, scroll, repeat. Short bursts of dopamine. 15 seconds of distraction before the emptiness creeps back in. A video pops up. Do you miss the old days? I hesitate. My thumb hovers over the screen. Another one follows. We know how you feel. A deep breath. A moment of silence. I do. God, I do. That unbearable ache. The urge to cry. To call for my mother. To grasp at the innocence I lost. I just want it all back. The video lingers on my screen. I just stare at those words. Old days, we know how you feel. My thumb hovers over the screen. Its thumbnail is a grainy image of a 90s kids show I used to watch. A sad smile crosses my face. I think it's Stimpy from *Ren and Stimpy*. The screen flickers for a second. We know how you feel. You are not alone. A tear slips down my cheek. Of course, I'm not alone. Curiosity gnaws at me, and I click the ad. The screen goes dark for a moment, casting the room into complete darkness. For just a second, the screen flickers, and I swear I see something standing in my doorway. My breath catches. I yell, fumbling for the bedside lamp, but when the light fills the room, nothing is there. Melancholy is one hell of a thing. Why do I feel this way? Why would some random ad makes me feel like this? Tears fall from my eyes. I don't want to be scared anymore. I look back at my phone. Only one sentence stares back at me. Thank you for purchasing. Relive the moments you've lost. Then, suddenly, the screen jumps back to the app, playing some fake prank video. You know, the kind where the person shushes the camera before doing something incredibly stupid. Thank you for purchasing. What did I just do? The feeling of unease creeps over me. I keep watching video after video, trying to shake it off, until exhaustion takes over and I drift into sleep. I wake up, I go to work, I come home, and I collapse onto the couch. That's when I see a notification on my phone. Check your mailbox. My mailbox. At first, I think it's a scam, but then I remember thank you for purchasing. Did something actually arrive? I stare at the message, my gut twisting. Then, footsteps in the hallway. Slow, careful. My heart jumps. I sit up, rush to the door, and fling it open. Nothing. Just the stillness of my apartment. My gaze drifts to the mailbox. Maybe something really is there. Another notification pops up on my phone. Everything you ever wanted. A chill runs down my spine. I walk to the mailbox. Behind me in my house, noises, footsteps, knocking, soft but insistent. I don't turn around. I don't acknowledge it. I ignore it. I just keep moving. Inside the mailbox, there's a package, a VHS tape, and a smaller box. I grab them and take them inside, pulling my old VHS player from the cabinet, where it sits collecting dust among my older game consoles and tapes. My hands tremble as I set it up. The player whirs as I slide the tape in. I connect it to my flat screen TV using an old adapter, the kind I had to dig out of a forgotten drawer. The screen flickers to life, static crawling across the display. Then, an image appears. I see myself. I'm younger, sitting in my childhood bedroom, laughing with my friends. The old games, the late nights, the moments that defined me. My breath catches. Clip after clip. The tape shows me everything I have lost. The nights in the park, the gas station runs, the raids, the laughter, the joy, all of it. A lump forms in my throat. It's all still here. Then, I notice something. In the corner of each clip, a shadow. Small at first, barely noticeable, but growing closer with each passing frame. My past self doesn't react, doesn't see it. But I do. The screen shifts to the present, to me. I'm sitting on the couch, watching the tape. I look at myself and see the sadness on my own face. Is this really the person I've become? My breath turns shallow, ragged, and then, behind me, a shape. A shadowy figure, standing just beyond the frame. A hand, dark and skeletal, reaches forward. My breath stops. My body stiffens. I try to move, to turn, but I can't. My reflection on the screen remains frozen. Wide-eyed in silent horror, the shadow leans down. Something cold brushes my shoulder. A whisper, low and guttural. "We know how you feel." In the corner of my eye I see a long hand reaching over my shoulder, towards the smaller box. It grabbed it and put it in my hand. "This is the answer. Come with me." With shaking hands, I open the box. Inside, a single pill. I stare at it. Slowly I look back up to the screen. It continued showing all the lost memories I long for. In the reflection, I can see the figure standing over me, watching the back of my head. On the screen, I watch all the best times I ever had. Going to the cinema with my father, to Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. That actually used to be my favorite. Tears are filling my eyes. I look back at the pill. My voice shakes. WHWH, what is it? That awful, guttural voice responds. "It will take away all the pain. You know it will never go away." I look at the pill, then back at the screen again. I know he's right. Maybe there is nothing left for me here. I take the pill from the box, my hands trembling. Tears stream down my face, blurring the memories playing before me. The laughter, the love, the life I once had. I swallow the pill. You will not regret it. Just at that moment, my phone rings. The screen shows Nathan, my best friend. Against all odds, for the first time in a very long time. A smile flickers across my face. I glance at the TV. Scenes of me and Nathan at 9 years old, running in the park, playing games, doing everything together. And for a second, just a second, the weight of melancholy lifts. My eyes go wide. What have I done? I just need to talk to Nathan. He will help me. I don't want this. Please, I made a mistake. I reach for my phone, but before my fingers can graze the screen, the darkness swallows me. I can feel the cold, long bony fingers wrap around my neck. The weight of regret, every choice I've made, is the last thing that crosses my mind before I fade into nothingness. I've had trouble sleeping lately. I usually just get up and stare out the apartment window into the artificially lit street and the starry night sky. Just left to ponder about the accident, you know. It's been a few months since I moved out here. I still think about her often. I miss her. Before the tragedy that became her. It wasn't my fault though, that's what they tell me anyway. I've been drinking too lately. I used to never, but you know. I shuffled my way over to the fridge and opened a beer. The trash pile of beers in the corner had been piling up. Soon enough another would join. The street below outside the window sat lonely, cold, and artificially orange illuminatedly lit. The street lamps above layered the street, letting all who passed know that you were now in the very spotlight of this cold, dead lonely street. As I was staring out the window I saw a car coming down the street. Simultaneously I saw another car on the opposite end of the street take the corner. It was barreling down the street now on the opposite side of the road. Metal, plastic, and glass collided as a cannon shot was released from the sound of the crash. I put my hands in front of my face and ducked slightly in instinct. With the beer still in my hand, I slowly lifted myself and looked back out the window with utter shock and horror. It looked like a war zone. Glass and plastic and metal and parts of both cars riddled the street like shell casings. As I looked at the car that came around the corner, my horror intensified. The entire front end was smashed and the windshield was completely shattered as the driver now laid over the hood, slowly dropping and dripping blood from his body onto the hood and then into the street. The passenger, who I could see was a woman, crawled out a few feet away from the car, to which she then switched to roll over and lie down on her back. There was blood pretty much everywhere on her hands, her chest, and coming from her mouth. She sort of just laid there taking in shallow breaths, choking and coughing on her own blood. I looked over to the other car and I saw it was on fire. Completely, it was starting to become consumed by flames. The cold artificial orange light of the street lamps now started to turn into a natural order of orange flames. Gas poured everywhere around the car only to feed the flames hunger further. I didn't see anyone in the car past the flames, but I knew there were people in there. I sat there and stared into the chaos of it all, and then the thought came over me. I never called anyone. Maybe it was because of the shock and awe horror of it all, or maybe I just wanted to satisfy some deep-rooted morbid curiosity. But it was more than that. I felt some sort of familiarity with their situation, like some form of relatability, like I was laying in the street with them, like even if I tried to stop it I couldn't if I wanted to. While I pondered this thought, I heard the sirens in the distance, called on from good Samaritans far better than myself. For me, I continued to watch. At the point at which the car was completely consumed inside and out by flames at its hottest point, that's when I knew no one had survived. But somehow she did. Just then I saw a woman emerge from the flames from the passenger side of the car. I leaned in the window for a closer look. I think after all the shock and horror, confusion came in on my face. She was fine. She was just fine. Completely unharmed by the flames, not a bruise or a scratch or a burn on her. She wore a sort of white sunflower dress with flats as her shoes and bows on them. She had a mix of long wavy curly blonde hair which she also had a bow in. She seemed like a woman out of time. It was quite odd to see such a beautiful woman amid all this chaos. Even if it weren't for the crash, there was something about her that was just oddly and uniquely beautiful. She turned around after coming out of the passenger seat towards my direction with her sunflower dress twirling around her. Also, not a drop of blood or chaos on her clothes. She turned in my direction and she looked at me. We locked eyes. She had green eyes that were like the most beautiful green grass or marshlands that covered the as backdrop to a calming blue lake or river. At the same time, these eyes were deep burning eyes that could tell a story entirely outside of this. The familiarity of emotion was now coming from this woman and those burning eyes. Surely I know this woman. I've seen this woman. Who was she? Her eyes were the story now. If you were to look into her eyes now, every sense of emotion would come from those eyes. Somehow I felt like she was trying to tell me something outside of this. All at once, while we stared completely, she was gone. But I couldn't even begin to comprehend or contemplate why and how she was just gone. In one instance I was staring at those deep burning eyes, and in the other, she was just gone. I called in the next day to work, feigning the empathy and emotions that come with something like that to cover up my selfishness and guilt. In actuality, I knew the true reason. It was that girl whose eyes burned passion and the orange hue of the sun. When I looked into her eyes, I felt what she felt, but I couldn't just quite describe it. Later that morning, I went out to a diner I frequented. I went in to order my usual, but I noticed a woman in one of the booths on the far end sitting in the seat next to the window crying. She was just out of view, but I could hear her quietly sobbing. I thought it was weird. The woman stood quite out and was apparent in her sobs, but nobody seemed to pay her any mind. She just sat there quietly sobbing, while at the same time, she was trying to fix her makeup for the patrons in the diner, who never noticed her in the first place. I decided to walk up to the woman to maybe console her, or at the very least satisfy my curiosity. As I walked up to the woman, I felt my heart sink. It was her. It was the woman. That was the woman from the car. She sat there in the field of some apparent despair, and yet she sat there beautiful as ever. I walked up to the woman and solemnly said, "Hello miss, I couldn't help but notice you were crying over here and well, I just wanted to make sure you were okay miss." She replied in a soft, recovered tone, "Oh yes, I'm fine, I'm sorry. I know this is no place to bring my problems onto others." "Oh no miss, you're okay. I don't mean to overstep my bounds, but may I ask why you were crying miss?" I nodded in a way as to ask to sit down, and she nodded back, as in a way to approve my request. Her recovered tone returned to a more broken one. It's my brother. He died in that car accident last night. The one on 52nd Street. It's on the news." I felt my eyes widen, and how I wanted to sink into the booth. I felt the dreaded horror fill my soul. I witnessed this woman's brother die, and I had done nothing to stop it. for any of the people for that matter. It felt like some god had been cursing me from above as the guilt and sadness washed over me. What happened to the punishment of other lives was now on my hands, only for me to meet the woman from the car to see the fruit of my lack of labor in the tragedy before me. She looked on my face with that same familiar look from the car. With grief on her face reflected back upon mine, she said, "My name is Annie. Annie was my wife." Wow, guys, that one still gives me chills. If you made it to the end, let me know you survived. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed the terror, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're creeping closer to that 1K goal, and your support means everything. Hit the bell so you never miss a nightmare-fueled upload. Stay spooky, stay safe, and remember, you might want to sleep with the lights on tonight. Until next time, peace out, if you can.